case you're not as familiar with ACS as we are. So compared to the federal government and maybe private pharmaceutical companies, we spend much less money, but we are still the largest private nonprofit supporting cancer research and training. So if you compare us to other cancer fighting organizations, we are investing the most money in this area. And we've been doing this since the mid-40s. Almost $5 billion has been awarded in grants. And we feel like we have a pretty good track record because over that same time period, about 47 people who've been funded by ACS have also been Nobel Prize recipients. So no pressure, anybody. I also like to just touch on our broad mandates for the program. So since about 1996, I believe, we have had a focus on beginning investigators, and certainly in terms of students, we're focused on people who are at the beginning of their careers. We are primarily interested in funding research and training that is based on the expertise of the people who are applying. That said, our goal is to also fund across the continuum of cancer. So we have, as you'll see on another slide, a few different program offices, and we really try and balance across that spectrum. We have a few priority funding areas. One in particular, just to highlight, is we have long been investing in trying to address health disparities and cancer health equity. And then the program that I'm most familiar with, because I'm in charge of it, is our training grants for health professionals. And as I mentioned, we are organized into 6 offices. And if you move from the left to the right on this slide, you see that very basic cancer research is represented in the molecular genetics and biochemistry of cancer program, but we also fund work that looks at cells and activities of cells and translational research, clinical research, and then cancer prevention and control research. And then all the way on the right, there's a blue umbrella. If you want to pretend that those are umbrellas. And that's the program for health professional training. And under the umbrellas are abbreviations, and those refer to the committees that review the grants. So they have the responsibility of looking at about 1,500 total grant applications each year and make recommendations for which ones could be funded. SCN stands for Scholarships in Cancer Nursing, and that's circled so that you are aware that there is one committee and one committee only that reviews these applications, and it's populated by people who are experts in oncology nursing and oncology and research and education. After the committee does all its hard work in January, they, along with all the other committees, forward their recommendations to our council. So at the January meeting, they will review the applications, discuss them, score them, and come up with a ranked list. And then council is our second level of peer review. And this is comprised of people primarily who've been on peer review committees, usually as the chair. So they're very familiar with the programs and with the process. They have the tough job of figuring out who we can actually fund based on the amount of money that's available. In 1999, we added stakeholders to our peer review committee. So that's our name for people who are not cancer scientists or clinician experts. They've got other names in other places like consumer advocates, et cetera. But the reason I mention them is because these are people who are participating because they have a personal interest in cancer or in cancer research, so they might be a survivor or a caregiver, but they're full voting members of the committee. And they do not attempt to critique the specifics of educational programs or science, if there's any involved. But they're coming at it from the perspective of somebody who is certainly familiar with cancer. And so when you are completing your application, particularly when you're doing the section called the General Audience Summary, keep in mind that there are folks who are very invested in seeing cancer defeated, and they're participating in the review process, and they're not expert oncology nurses. And I just want to give you a quick tour through the timeline. So once your application comes in here on November 1, you will get to peer review in January, and council will make decisions in March, and then we try and get our award notices out by the beginning of April. And then if funded, the grant would start next July 1. So I'm going to focus down a little bit on the health professional training grants. The last calendar year, we spent about $2 million, which is kind of typical. It does sort of go up and down, with the goal of training nurses, physicians, and social workers who are interested in pursuing oncology training and research. And our goal is to really make sure that the best people are out there applying the most up-to-date knowledge typically gained from research. So I know this is what you've all been waiting for. So we're going to take a deeper dive into the graduate scholarships. So these are available to people who are either getting a master's degree in nursing, a doctorate of nursing practice, or if you are in a postmaster's certificate program that is going to allow you to practice as an advanced practice nurse. So some people, particularly in accelerated programs, have found that they need to actually get a certificate in order to have all the requirements that they need to be an advanced practice nurse specializing in oncology. So that's why that group is allowed to apply. But it's on a case-by-case basis, so if that is your situation, you need to get in touch with me in advance. You do not have to be a U.S. citizen or a permanent resident. You have to be able to stay here long enough to complete your program, so we don't want to start funding somebody who's going to leave in the middle. We're very happy if you go home afterwards and practice. That would be lovely, but you have to be able to stay here long enough to complete your degree, and you have to have a current nursing license. In the case of the program, it has to be obviously offered in an accredited academic institution, and depending on the degree you're getting, if you're getting an MSN, then likely you will need to demonstrate that there is integration of cancer content in your program. Not too many institutions have oncology tracks anymore, but you still need to be able to point to where you're going to get what you need to get that oncology focus. If you are an applicant or accepted into a DMP program, you likely have advanced practice oncology nursing training, in which case you wouldn't be expecting to get more cancer content. You would be expected to focus your DMP coursework and projects on that, but you do have to demonstrate that you have that advanced practice oncology nursing expertise. And this is probably buried in our materials, but eligible programs can be those that don't have a clinical practice component, particularly at the DMP degree level. For-profit schools are not included as eligible institutions, and these are two-year grants. You can get a total of $20,000. Your second-year funding is contingent upon you essentially doing what you said you would do in your first year, taking the courses, et cetera, getting passing grades, staying in school. And if you need only 1 year, that's fine, but we encourage people to request 2 just in case things shift. So the the reviewers are asked to consider the strengths of the applicant, the proposed program of study, and the program faculty. And there are sections of the application that pertain to all these and allow them to do that. And so the application is broken down into these 4 general areas, and the reviewers are asked to comment on those separately, and they have specific criteria that they evaluate against. And those are included in the application policies in Appendix A. So if you haven't run across that yet, you can see exactly what the reviewers are being asked to consider in each of these sections. And I'm going to go into more detail on them in the following slides. So under this section called Candidate Information, which is the very first part of the application, you're going to be putting in some general information about you, where you are in your program, whether you are actually enrolled or are at the point of having been accepted, how much of your program you've completed, what your GPA is if you have one. Sometimes people are applying in their first semester, so they wouldn't have a GPA. I believe our materials ask, in that case, if you don't have a GPA, to make sure you give us your GPA from your last degree program. So if you're getting a master's and your last degree program was a bachelor's degree, please provide that degree. I mean that GPA. There's a new item in this section where we're asking applicants to tell us what their area of scholarly interest in cancer care is. And so be sure you address that. We're interested in knowing what your educational and professional experience has been thus far. And if you're coming from another oncology field, that's fine, particularly if you're in a bridge program. But we want to know really where the oncology experience may be in your background. We also want to know what kind of continuing education you've had. Particularly, they're looking to see that it's sufficient and that it's relevant. So you may have a lot of CEs under your belt. It's fine to maybe say total, how much you've earned over the period of your career, but really focus on the last few years and what's the most relevant to what it is you want to be pursuing in your degree program. They'll be interested to see how you're participating in professional organizations. Really good idea to be a member of relevant professional organizations. It's even better to have taken on some particular roles, leadership roles, or being involved for a long time as a member. And certainly presenting, if you've had the opportunity to present either at one of those professional meetings or in a regional meeting or even within your institution. All those things count as professional activities. And if you've been a volunteer for cancer-related organizations, again, they'll be looking at the same sort of thing. How long have you been involved, and really how much have you done? The other way that they assess you as a candidate is by looking at your letters of recommendation. And so 2 of them are requested, and you should make sure that you ask people who know you well, but even more importantly, are really in a position to assess your academic abilities and whether you're likely to be successful in your graduate program. So faculty are good people to do that. Possibly supervisors, but really think about who's going to be in the best position to provide that information. I actually started to touch on this. When they look at your professional contributions, they're going to be interested, they're going to be keeping in mind sort of where you are. So, it's going to be what's appropriate since you perhaps completed your undergraduate degree or your last degree. But what they will want to see is whether you have made any presentations or been involved in any papers or research or other kinds of patient materials. If you've been involved in research, what your role was. And then if you've had any professional or academic recognition, so any scholarships, any honors, including work honors, all of those are helpful to the committee. And then in this section, they're also going to ask you to provide a narrative where you talk about what your goals are beyond completing your program of study, right? So you're in this program because you want to be doing something additional in the future. And it's important that you really tie together your past experience, whether it's in your role as an oncology nurse or perhaps inspired by somebody in your life who had cancer and made you think about this as a career, whatever it is. You don't need to share private information, but having that sort of that personal perspective about what you've been doing in the past, what you hope to get from your program, and where you want to be in the future is an important thing to lay out for the reviewers. They're really looking to understand that you have a passion for this work, and that needs to come out in this statement. The next section that you need to address is all about the program that you're going to be pursuing. And really what they're looking to see is how this all fits. So based on what you said you want to get to, you need to be able to show that this program is going to help you. You need to give a rationale for why you chose the program. And certainly geography may be a consideration, but also it should be more than convenient. It needs to be able to meet your educational needs. So you want to talk about how the program content is going to help you meet your goals and what its relevance is, not only to your goals, but more broadly. And if you don't need to explain your program content here because you're in a DNP program, you need to include information about your prior training or education in oncology nursing in this section. In the application this year, there is one new section, and anything that's new over the past couple of years we have highlighted in blue just so it sort of stands out in case people have applied before or advisors are familiar with the materials. We're asking for a description of your scholarly project if this is applicable to your program. So everybody in a DNP program is going to be expected to answer this. And if you're a master's student in a program that requires a thesis or a capstone project, you also need to answer that. So if you don't meet either of those, you should make clear in this section that that you're a master's student in a program that doesn't require a thesis. But presuming you are in these categories, you're going to give us the purpose and rationale for the project, your proposed approach, and how this is going to contribute to clinical practice. And then we also ask you to please describe what your coursework is. We want to know what you have taken thus far and what you're projecting to take. And this is one of the forms that's in a landscape mode, and it's provided as a table, so you can adjust the rows as you need to, but try not to change the formatting such that it comes out of landscape mode. And if you need help putting it back, please give us a holler. It's just a little bit easier to read if it's a long table. This very creatively titled Part 2 of the application is technically something that would be completed by your advisor or you in conjunction with your advisor. And this is where the reviewers learn about your graduate program. So the advisor is asked to describe the program, and if it is an oncology program, obviously, that would be where the focus is and how this is going to provide what you need. If it is not an oncology program, there needs to be an explanation of how the program is appropriate for somebody who's applying to a cancer nursing scholarship. interested in the way the program is structured. So we have a variety of people applying from a variety of programs. Some of them are on campus, some of them are blended, some are totally online, some are distance mediated. All of that is fine as far as the committee is concerned. But they do ask that we get information about the strategies that the program uses, no matter how it's structured, to engage students in didactic and clinical activities, what kind of campus activities are offered, and how students work together and learn from each other, which, as you can imagine, is going to be different for each of those kinds of programs. So that is a new section. If you are possibly working with an advisor who has supported a lot of students in the past, you might want to make sure that they realize that has been reworded there. And then, of course, the committee is going to want to know what the courses and clinical experiences and other resources related to cancer nursing that are available to you. And in a sense, you're kind of going to be corroborating here. So you will have described some of these things in your portion, and then your advisor is essentially expected to confirm that. The other thing that is asked in this section that is not changing is the reviewer is interested in knowing how oncology nursing preceptors are selected, and how and provide some examples of those preceptors and include information about how advisors advocate for and supervise your clinical and capstone activities. So this is all in the application. I'm just walking you through it, but they are very interested in how all these things happen, particularly when people are not in a typical bricks and mortar situation. But in all cases, they want to know about that. They're also going to be looking at information provided about the qualification of your faculty advisor and that person's role. Your advisor needs to be explicit about how they're going to be advising and mentoring you, like how often, for how long, exactly what they're going to be doing, and any other faculty who are involved. And the advisor has a bio sketch to fill out, and they'll be looking there to make sure this person really has the expertise needed to support you. And then in addition to those 2 letters of recommendation, your advisor is also asked to comment on your potential as a graduate student. So you've completed your whole application. Congratulations. But I know that the burning question really is how many applications do we fund? And we like to say, well, that's really not the right question, because the bottom line is if you don't apply, you won't get funded. We've awarded, probably approaching 1,000 scholarships since the late 80s. But the thing to understand is that we don't have a target or a set aside in the budget, so we do not say we're going to fund a dozen or 30, or we have this much money to spend. It really depends on what our available budget is and how strong the applications are. And in fact, the funding percentage is considered pretty high, especially compared to our large research grant applications. The most recent cycle was 30%, which is, the NIH, some of their grants are in single digits. We have funded as high as 65%. So it's not a set percentage or a set anything. It really just is how many good applications and how much money we have to spend. And I know that we're getting ahead in the process for you, but if you apply, regardless of the outcome, you do get feedback. You get a letter that says where you stand and whether you're likely to be funded. And then in addition, you get copies of the written critiques. You don't know who your reviewers are, but ideally they're giving you good feedback so you can understand what they felt were the strong points and the less strong points of your application and any recommendations for you. If you're in a position to resubmit because you're still going to be in your program, you can make an appointment to talk with me, and we can walk through the critiques together. And I should tell you that when people do revise and resubmit, they do very well. In our doctoral scholarship program, the top 2 applicants were both people who had resubmitted. So the quality of the feedback really seems to be helpful. And it's not unusual that sometimes people have to resubmit. So we have a few moments at this point to answer questions if you have any. And if you do, you're going to need to unmute your phone. And while you're letting things sort of marinate, we're going to take you to Proposal Central now. If you haven't been there, you're going to have a deep dive with Shannon into that. And the end result of everything you do on Proposal Central is going to be a document. And if you haven't noticed, on cancer.org, where you would have downloaded your policies and instructions, there is a sample blank application. So it doesn't have much on it except like dates and amounts. But at least you can see what the finished product should look like. It'll give you sort of a target to shoot for. So now Shannon's going to take you down the rabbit hole.
Okay, so this is the front page of Proposal Central. Hopefully you've had an opportunity to create a professional profile. If not, you can do that offline. So I have a professional profile. I have an account. So I am going to try to find the Graduate Scholarship in Cancer Nursing Practice grant, and I'm going to filter down to the American Cancer Society. And it'll pull up our various grants, and I'm going to scroll down to the Graduate Scholarship in Cancer Nursing Practice. You go ahead and you'll click on Apply Now, and that opens up the application. You'll see the project title. Please do not change that. I know it's light gray, but it is the title of your application, so please leave that. You would select a program office, which your selection would be the Health Professional Training Grants and Cancer Control. And the total amount requested start and end date are pre-filled for you. Please do not change those dates. Scroll down, proposal type. It might be a new one or you might be resubmitting. So you would choose which one. If you're not resubmitting, you would choose no, and then you're going to scroll down. It does say peer review committee code. Those are for resubmissions, but what you would do is just put N/A, the instructions are right here, and first or second resubmission, you'll put not applicable if that applies to you. And there's a section right here that talks about scientific misconduct. You can click on this link and read all about it before you submit. And you can go ahead and click on the Yes button. In order to get to other sections of the application over here to the left, you do need to click the Save button. And then you'll see that you now have access to the various parts. Ginger mentioned a sample application on on cancer.org, and I think it's very helpful, especially when you go to the part where you're going to download the templates, and you will save those offline and fill those out. And then you will have to create a PDF in order to upload that to Proposal Central, which I will show you that in a few moments. The next section is Enable Others to access this proposal. If you want to give access to somebody, perhaps your instructor, you can go ahead and put their name in there, and there's different access rights. Administrator can do everything. Edit, so if you wanted somebody to be able to have editing rights, you could do that. And then there's also, you can just let them view it, or you can just leave it all blank and don't give anyone access, which is fine. Applicant PI section, so when you create a professional profile, you're going to pull in your name will be pulled in, but also you're going to choose your university. It does say principal investigator. That's what you are right now. I mean, obviously you're a graduate student, but just ignore that part. And scroll down, Anything with a red asterisk is required. So that information has to be there. And you just scroll down and you'll see various parts of the application. You will need to put in your RN license number, and you will also need to select the state in which you are licensed. I'm going to click on Edit Professional Profile just to give you a sneak peek of what it looks like. And I chose Georgia State University, and it has the various information in there. We would like to have your preferred mailing address, meaning your home address is probably the best one to use instead of the institution's address. And it's okay to put your preferred mailing address right here, and this is where you would do that. When you select the school, information pulls in about that as well on another part of the application. So it's okay to go ahead and change what's there and put your street address right here.
I just mentioned one thing. So when we talk about institution, we're talking about where you're going to school. Sometimes people will put in their place of work, which is their institution, but that's in a different context. So make sure that when you're talking about institution in the application, it is where you're going to be getting your degree, and then as Shannon said, your address is your personal address where you're going to get stuff.
Okay, thanks, Ginger. Mm-hmm. The next section that I would like for you to look at is personal data for applications. There are a couple of required fields. That would be your date of birth, and you scroll down all the way, your citizenship and what country you are the citizen of. There are other parts on here that are helpful to have. It does not affect whether you're going to be funded or not. You do not have to fill this information out. We do use it for statistical purposes. So if you'd like to fill it out, great. And if you don't want to, that's fine too. And you'll just see the various things that we ask, and you scroll all the way down. Please do not put a visa type, a social security number, passport number, or any of that information. We do not need that. So after I enter some information, I'm going to go ahead and click the Save button. Always click the Save button before you move on to the next screen. In order to return to my application, I'm going to click here, and it's going to take me back to the application. The next section is Institution and Contacts. And you'll see that I chose Georgia State University. You would choose your institution where you're going to be going to school. A lot of times there are several choices to choose from, and you might not be able to figure out which one you're supposed to choose. If that's the case, you'll want to call or get in touch with the Office of Sponsored Projects if there's information in there that needs to be updated or that you need assistance with. And that office is also going to sign off on your scholarship application. So it would be good to go ahead and start talking to that group. And I'm just scrolling all the way down. You will see that there's a signing official that has to sign. And at Georgia State, they just have one person listed. You might click on this link and see 5 people, and you don't know who to pick. So again, I would check with your Office of Sponsored Projects. Department head, you can add that in, and I'm going to put Ginger. Oops. I'm having a hard time typing. And then you basically put it twice. You click the Add button, and it pulls up information on Ginger, and it's filled out. So basically you click the Save button, and it says your changes have been saved. So you close the window, and you will see that Ginger has now been added as your department head. So you would do the same thing for your faculty advisor, and send the checks to the attention of, that would be the financial office. Your Office of Sponsored Projects will have that information as well. So you will definitely want to check with them. You're required to have letters of recommendation, and there are 2 that are required, so you'll see, and you must have 2. Basically what you would do is you would enter the email address. We're going to use Ginger again. and you click the add button, and it basically says send email. So I just sent an email to Ginger. She will get the email. She will get a link that she'll click on so she can add her letter to your application. There's also instructions on that as well. And it's a good idea to start early with the letters of recommendation. A lot of times people get very busy and they might wait till the last minute, which will be stressful for you because if you don't have the letter in, you cannot submit your application. So if you have any issues, just give us a call. The next section is the general audience summary and project coding. And I am going to let Ginger go over this section with you. She already touched on it briefly about the general audience summary.
Okay. Thanks, Shannon. So this portion of the application is pretty much what it says it is. We're interested in having a description of your intended program during the period of your grant. This is used, as I mentioned earlier, by the stakeholders. They may start here to get a sense of what you're intending to do. And it's also provided to our regional staff in the event grants are funded. So all of our funds are raised locally. And people who give money to the American Cancer Society are very interested in knowing who is being funded. So it's public information, essentially, that you provide in this general audience summary and we might provide to our staff. There's also the possibility the donor might express an interest in supporting an oncology nurse who's getting an advanced degree, and so this is what they would see also, but without identifying information in the case of the donor. So, so you might want to reflect on what you said in your professional goals statement and kind of use that to inform what you put here and what you plan to do with your advanced degree. The next section is also based on interest by internal and external groups. So if you were working in the area of pediatric or adolescent cancer, then you should indicate that your application is 100% related to that. If not, you can put down 0%. And if it's a mixture, if you're interested in a cancer that affects both children and adults, then you might say 50-50. You don't need to put a percent sign. I know that's something that Shannon says. And is there anything else they have to fill in here?
Yes, areas of research.
Okay. So we participate in something called the ICRP, which is an international consortium that basically tracks trends and gaps in the cancer field. And you don't have to review this online. This is also an appendix in your materials. There's about, I think, 7 sections, and with those sections there are examples, so if you're not really completely sure. But, one right there, patient care and survivorship issues, that may well apply to your proposal. And, just do the best you can, but we expect that you're in the best position to tell us how your application should be classified. And you can pick more than one. You're probably not going to be talking about alterations in chromosomes, but I think you'll find something that will fit what you're doing. And we're also interested in knowing if your program of study is focused on a particular cancer site. So a lot of people do have that focus, particularly because of their prior experience. So if it's if it's leukemia or breast cancer or any of those, you should indicate that here and try again to assign a percentage. You may not be focused on a particular cancer, particularly maybe if you're in a DNP program, maybe an executive leadership program. So you could say non-site specific, and that would be fine. And also, as you're looking through the materials, I let you in on a little bit of a secret. The policies and instructions are organized such that information that pertains to all grantees is included, and then information is provided about specific applications. So the first half or so of the policies and the instructions is general information. And particularly in the instructions, you may see some references that don't apply, like to key personnel. So just, keep in mind that not everything will apply, and if you're not asked for something on Proposal Central, likely it does not apply.
Great, thanks, Ginger. One more thing that I do want to mention, the general audience summary, there is a sample of it in the policy and instructions document. Again, Ginger had mentioned, please do not enter a % or a 0.5, for example. Please don't do that. And let's see, that's about it. So I'm going to click the Save button. The next section is proposal attachments. I had mentioned to you that in Section 2 you download the templates and you work on them offline. Well, here's where you attach them. So you will need to convert them to PDF documents. And once you've done that and you're ready to upload your attachments, you can click on Attach Files. And it will ask for the attachment type, so you could say, okay, this is my faculty advisor's bio sketch. You don't have to put a description in there, but you would want to click on here, and it takes you to your computer where you can pick the file and upload it. So you want to do that, and you'll do that for each type. It doesn't matter which one you upload first. It's just that when it prints out, it's going to print out in the order that we would like for it to be. So once you print it out, please do not shift papers and move them around. It'll print out exactly how it's supposed to. So you would just upload attachments, return, continue, etc. And once you do that, you would go ahead and validate your application. And the Validate button lets you know what's required and what you have not completed. So you will see, clicking on the Validate button. Yes, I'm trying to. You will, oh, here we go, good. All right, so you will see different sections, and they're hyperlinked, but I did not put in my license number or the state. I didn't add a signing official. Ginger hasn't uploaded her letter of recommendation for me, so I want to reach out to her at least a week before to double check that she's working on it. And I did not upload any of my attachments yet. So basically what that means is you need to go back and add that information in there, and then you try again, you click on Validate, and if that's correct, then you can go ahead and submit your application. You will get notification that your application has been submitted. The next field I just want to discuss is the print signature pages, and then print signature pages with attachments. So I'm going to click on the print signature page so that you can see what it looks like. You'll see what I was referring to. You'll see how the grant scholarship name appears here. You'll see how it's a new proposal type. We use this area right here just to sort in the office. You will see that sometimes the date on the date submitted is not the same date. Don't even worry about that. Sometimes it comes up with different dates. But again, don't worry about it. It's probably when you first start working on your application, as I am today, so it says 8/15. So again, don't worry about that. And then it puts all my information in there and how to, my email address and contact information. And you'll see that the applicant's current institution does pull in as Georgia State University. However, you will see that my home mailing address is right here. And that's when you go on your professional profile and you put that in. I had mentioned that when you select your institution, that information would show up. And this is where it would show up. It says Georgia State University, and that's the address and contact information. You will scroll back up, and let's see if there's anything else. This box, again, is used for sorting purposes. The required fields that you fill in will show up here. For example, on the title page, you chose the program office, Health Professional Training Grant. So that just gives you an idea. The project dates are pre-filled and they show up here just like the proposed budget. Now, if I had entered a signing official, it would be here too, and that's under institution and contacts, where you'll want to get in touch with your office's sponsored projects. So that gives you an idea. You'll see the signatures, yours, the faculty advisor, the department head, and the signing official. These signatures do not need to be original signatures. You can use electronic signatures. However you can get the signatures on there is fine with us. And we'll scroll down. You see the contact information. You'll see where Ginger, the department head, shows up. So basically, and then other sections that you fill out will show up here. So finally, the general audience summary does print out, and I just put some letters and numbers in here. I just wanted to show you that it does print out. So that's what the signature page and contact page looks like. And sometimes people print the signature pages first to get signatures. A lot of times, most of the time, you're going to have to, the institution has to sign off on it, and they'll want to see the whole application. So, but you can print the signature pages. Possibly your department head wants to go ahead and sign it. She's already looked at your proposal. Anyway, so you print the signature pages with attachments. If I had put attachments up there, it would have the signature page, and then after the general audience summary, it would have the table of contents and so on and so forth if I had uploaded them. So that's how, and again, that's how you see what it looks like. And again, on cancer.org, we do have a sample application. And finally, I am done with everything, and I'm ready to submit my application. I click on the Submit button, and it just gives you an important notice. You just see all this information here. And I'm going to submit my application, but I can't because I didn't fill out everything, so then I have to go back in and fill out the information that is missing. That's why you want to go ahead and use the Validate button before you try to submit, so you can make sure you have everything that's required validated and that you're good to go, and you can hit the Submit button. And that's pretty much it for Proposal Central. I know it was a quick review. If you have any questions, you can feel free to contact me anytime, and I'll be happy to go over Proposal Central with you. And let's see here. I am going to switch over to Ginger. Here we go.
So Shannon's already told you that, and thank you, Shannon, that you can contact her. You definitely should get in touch with us if you have questions. The other people you should talk to is people who may have received this grant. There are a number of schools that submit on behalf of students every year. So if you need any information about who maybe has been funded at your institution, or perhaps if you're having any challenges in locating an advisor, we can help you with that. And let me just get to the next slide. And so there is Shannon's contact information. There is Stella's contact information. They know where to find me if there's a question that I need to help with. And all these links are also on cancer.org. So there's lists of staff, et cetera, there. Stella, did you want, you have anything you wanted to share with them at this point?
Yes, someone just asked about if the this is being recorded. It is being recorded. It takes about 3 weeks for the recording to come back. And if you, I do have a list of names that some people were not able to attend, so they requested to have the recording sent to them. So if there's any part that you missed or you just want to go back over or whatever, you can go back and listen to it. But yeah, it takes about 3 weeks for the recording to come in. Also, so you could just send me an email, or you could just let me know here, send me a quick little message like, yes, I want the recording, and I can email it to you once it comes in. So I just wanted to go back over a couple things that Shannon and Ginger stated earlier. Important things that we do need are the signatures. The application is due October 15th, and so we need it completed. November 1, I'm sorry. November 1, so we want to make sure that the application is completed. We need signatures. Everything should be submitted and uploaded. We need to have the electronic copy as well as the paper copy. Some people sometimes forget that they're supposed to submit a paper copy. So you are supposed to print it and send it to us. And like I said as well, make sure it's uploaded. And then making sure that, as Shannon stated, the date and the amount, the budget amount are already preset. Please do not change that. And then there's a section in 3.1 where it asks for your information. And we just want to make sure that where it's asking about the enrollment date and all of that, that is filled out completely, the dates and everything. Sometimes when I get the applications, it's not filled out. So we want to make sure you are enrolled. If you're full-time, if you're part-time, you need to let us know when you'll be full-time. Okay, skip that part. So just make sure this page is filled out completely. If you have any questions, you can always call me or email me. It's probably better to email me. I can respond to you quicker by email. And then just make sure the letters of reference are uploaded. I can't see it until after all applications have been submitted and our grant specialist has approved everything. So if anything is missing, I will give you an email, send you an email and let you know, hey, we're missing this or whatever. So get it to us as soon as possible. So it's not complete until all parts of the application are in our hands. So does anybody have any questions? You can unmute.
There is a question about how we will send out the recording. We cannot send it out via email. We would most likely use Dropbox, and hopefully that will work for you. And if it does not, then we'll figure out another way to get that recording to you. One more thing, the application, as Stella stated, is due November 1st. Your paper copy is due the next business day. The time is 5 p.m., so you'll need to make sure, Eastern Time, make sure that you submit both on the dates that they are due.
The other thing is that if you're having any kind of technical problems with Proposal Central, contact Proposal Central, because they'll be in a better position to help you, and if it's filtered through us, we won't necessarily be able to describe the exact problem. And sometimes things happen. You know, if it's a serious technical problem, we'll make sure that everybody is able to submit. Usually that's not the case, but if you're running into something that doesn't seem to be working correctly, certainly let them know, and there's an 800 number and an email box to send to. And we're going to be wrapping up in a moment. If you don't mind.
Can I ask a quick question? This is Eva. Sorry to interrupt you.
Sure.
This might be kind of a nuanced question, but my interest is specifically in hematology. And so when I write, I tend to state it as hematology. Is there any preference for verbalizing things as oncology versus hematology, or is that just a moot point?
That's a good question. I'm tempted to say stick the oncology in there too.
Okay.
I think they will probably just regard that as blood-related cancer, but I think it's probably not a bad idea to make sure they understand that that's the case.
Yeah, I see. Okay, sounds good. Thank you so much.
Sure. What I just wanted to ask is if you wouldn't mind, and actually since there's only a few of you on the phone, if you just want to tell us where you learned about the scholarship program and about this webinar, that would be helpful to know.
This is Eva again. I did get an email directly from my program, although I knew about the scholarship prior to receiving that email, and I actually don't know if I know where I found it the first time. I honestly think I was searching specifically online for Heme Onc related scholarships and found it in a search and had found it personally. But then I did get an email from my program that was sent to my entire class as well.
Okay, and do you mind telling me what program that is?
University of Minnesota, Twin Cities.
Oh, okay, great. We have not been overwhelmed by applications from University of Minnesota, so that's wonderful. Anybody else? Erin, Alicia? I'm not sure, I don't remember who was breastfeeding, so. Yeah, she had to leave because her baby's crying. Well, if you want to type it in the chat box, that's fine too, and we appreciate the information. So I just wanted to give you a little bit of inspiration here. You may know Chris Myskowski. She's a professor at University of California, San Francisco. She has an endowed chair in physiological nursing, and she's pretty well known for her work in symptom management and genetics. She's also been recognized with an American Cancer Society Clinical Research Professor Award, and that is our most prestigious program. We only award a few of those each year, and Chris is the only nurse scientist who holds this. But the one thing I want you to know is that if you apply and are successful, you will have something that Chris did not have, which is a graduate scholarship in cancer nursing practice. So I hope you will take that to heart and go for it, and who knows where it will take you. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm not hanging up, but if you have any other questions, we're happy to take them. But I just want to share the Society's mission and wish you all good luck. Are there any additional questions or comments from anybody else here? Okay, well, I think then we can release you. Have a good evening, and get in touch if you need any help. Thank you.